We'll jump right into obviously maybe the major story, if you want to call it that, or the I guess the finally situation. Sal Stewart's headed to Cincinnati. Nick, I think a vast majority of this fan base is going to say, "Who cares?" I really do, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to Sal Stewart, but I think that there's almost this animosity that has been built up by a portion of this fan base. I wouldn't even say a portion. I think it's a I'll call it a 50-50 split of people that are going to be so upset that it took this long for him to get to the big leagues and what's happened over the past week and a half. I genuinely think, Nick, there's going to be people that are completely upset. I'm in the boat of feeling that way a little bit, but I'm also in the boat of excitement of actually being able to see him play in a big league stadium with a big league uniform on. And, I'm not going to judge him totally based off what happens in 30 days. I don't think that's fair one way or the other. But it's going to be at least nice to see a new face, if nothing else, to keep me entertained for the next 27 days, 17 hours, and 51 minutes.
You like that?
I love that. It made me laugh. I need all the comedic humor I can get based off what I watched this weekend.
I did that while the Reds were trailing 2-0 today, so that was a little bit of a sarcastic. Hey, maybe it brought us back to life. You know what? If they make the playoffs, I'm gonna pencil that moment as when it shifted. Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts on this. I'll start with this thought here. This weekend, like the thing that was really just making me the most depressed, to be honest, was not that the Reds were basically out of it. It was the fact that they kind of have made this roster to where they've kind of pigeonholed out players that I want to see. Because Andujar's been great, but if the Reds are out of it, I don't really need to see Miguel Andujar unless he's coming back, which I think is very slim chance. I'm not really excited to see him take at bats in September. Same thing with Austin Hayes if he's not coming back. And that was kind of I was like, man, I want to see guys like CES, hell, even Blake Dunn, and obviously Sal Stewart. So that part of it is exciting. Now I'm going to temper my expectations or my excitement level because I have to see how he's used, because I got to be completely honest. I'm not 100% convinced that he's going to be in the lineup every day.
It depends on I guess how much faith they have in him defensively. We can jump into that now. There's obviously going to be a different variety of lineups that you could produce with Sal Stewart. Obviously, I'm very hopeful that he doesn't play third base, even though that's probably the position that many thought not that long ago that he was going to come up and play. Because at one point, Marte wasn't the guy, right? And then obviously we didn't have Ke'Bryan Hayes. And then all of a sudden, Marte comes up, but then they decide that he's a defensive liability, so they'll just take his defensive liability and put it in right field because they can live with at least, having somewhat of a defensive liability in right field. And then they get Ke'Bryan Hayes, and not only do you get Ke'Bryan Hayes, but clearly you've invested a little bit into him, right? Ke'Bryan Hayes, thankfully, has played extremely well, extremely well. But the truth of the matter is that Sal Stewart was kind of at one point this year, Nick, penciled in or thought of to take that role on. Then all of a sudden, Matt McLain struggles, and all of a sudden you're trying to say, okay, well, maybe he can play second base. Spencer Steer's a guy that I have said countless times that perhaps his best role is to be a utility player, bounce around, and be able to kind of fill gaps when gaps need to be filled. Kind of like Santiago Espinal to a certain extent, but obviously a much, much better hitter than Santiago Espinal. So maybe he plays first base. Then you could argue, well, at one time, Nick, this team did not have a DH. Now you have Andujar, who's been incredibly good since he's gotten here, but he's also in a weird spot where you don't know if he's healthy. It's kind of a mixed bag. I don't know what they're going to do, to be quite frank. And in my opinion, I would go for it. And I know that what people are going to think going for it's crazy, but I know McLain hit a home run. I got blah, 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 blah. I don't really care anymore. I'll be honest with you. I've moved off of McLain. I would like to see if Sal Stewart could at least stick it at second base. I want to see what it looks like. I at least want to see what it looks like. And it might look like Gavin Lux the one day against LA, and he never gets another chance there. But, Nick, I would at least start there and move forward. He'll who knows what the hell everybody wants at this point, because I got to tell you, talk about being depressed. I thought we had one position figured out on this team that I could believe in. And then obviously Ellie has struggled defensively, and all of a sudden now it's just a firestorm of where's he going to play? He should move out. I don't know. Nick, if I'm being honest, I threw my hands up in the air this weekend and said, I don't know. I don't want to say I quit. That's not a nice word, but I'm done making opinions. I'm just going to watch and learn and try to make maybe some decisions when the season's over.
I stopped tweeting during the games, which is like, I can't do this. I'm just going to be such an a-hole online. Like I'm not going to do it. I just said I'm giving it up for a while.
Good move by you.
Like, I can't do it. It's not healthy. Like it's not healthy. So I just nope, not doing it anymore. This is the thing I don't think people realize here, Trace. I'm going to go ahead and pencil in Brian Hayes as an everyday player because I don't think there's any way they're going to stop playing him mostly every day.
I agree.
Nor should they.
Yes.
So I'm go ahead. That caveat's in there. 2 of Miguel Andujar, Austin Hayes, Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer, or Matt McLean have to be on the bench for Sal Stewart to be in the lineup. I don't think people realize that. I think, Sal Stewart, call him up. Okay. You do have to put 2 of those players on the roster. I think like temporarily these 3 games, this will be my kind of prediction, me trying to guess here. My guess is you probably see Marte, Steer, and Brian Hayes actually in this next series get a day off. Brian Hayes has started 15 straight games, so he's probably due for a day off. Steer started 9 straight in 18 out of the last 19, and Marte started 19 straight games with only one of those games being a DH. So I think that's a pretty easy. You give one of those guys a day off. You get Sal Stewart in lineup each of the 3 days against the Blue Jays. You kind of see where he's at. That gets you into the Mets series, and then you got to kind of just figure out each day what your best lineup is. I'm not benching Matt McLean. They've wrote it out this long. The guy hit homers in back-to-back games, was on base 3 times today. I'm living with that defense. For me, if it was me personally, Sal Stewart would either be playing first base or DH every day, depending on Miguel Andujar's health. And I would figure everyone else out around it. I'm not saying Matt McLean can't get a day off, but if I have to pick Matt McLean or Spencer Steer, I'm picking Matt McLean. Sue me.
Can I say something? I think that there's a small chance that they know that Andujar is not healthy, which is why they called him up in the first place. Because if that actually makes somewhat sense. And the reason it makes sense, I guess logically, is because if you thought Sal Stewart was good enough to come up here and actually genuinely help you now, you should have felt the same way a week ago. If not even more so, Nick. Right? Because there's some guys that were struggling, Matt McLean specifically, that all of a sudden has had some good production, and then all of a sudden now, after he's had some production, you bring up a guy that you now have to find a spot for as well on top of Matt McLean. And I know that you're saying that they're not going to move Matt, but you're going to have to, again, make a decision on whether it's Hayes, Andujar, Steer, or McLean. You're going to have to make a decision, and Hayes, I guess, if you're going to include him. But I don't even think Hayes is a part of the conversation anymore. He's been too good. I mean, he's one of the better players on this team. I mean, I laugh and chuckle because it's like, I don't know, a month ago, everybody was just pissed off that Hayes was even brought over here, and look how terrible he is. And maybe that's just a quick overview of how bad this team looks at times. I don't know. I'm not trying to be overly ridiculous or pessimistic, but I guess that's it. Maybe Andujar's not healthy. Maybe they're like, you know what, Sal Stewart's going to be able to DH and play first base. We'll kind of mix and match who we decide to put it at, whether it's Steer and or Stewart at first, and then other half the time he can DH, and Andujar is pretty much out for the foreseeable future. That's the only thing that makes logical sense to me, because if you're just bringing him up now because you genuinely think he can help, it should have been done. At the absolute worst case, it should have been done before the St. Louis series. And I even admitted, Nick, I can get on board with the idea that you don't want to fly him all the way out to LA to then have to have him fly back in a couple days. All right, I can buy into that. But you had a day off, and you are starting a home series. There's just no excuse for it. And I don't want to get too far down the beaten path with Sal Stewart and that whole situation, but But yeah, I guess we'll find out what they ultimately do with Sal Stewart. And I'm with you. I'm hopeful that I get to see a lot of at bats. I hope it's not choppy, but you never know with and I'm not trying to kill. I'm just trying not to be overly pessimistic and rude on this show because everyone thinks that I'm the mean guy. But I don't know what's going to happen with Francona at the helm. I really don't. I give up even trying to figure it out, to be honest. And
after this week, there's no logic makes sense.
No, and you can't even follow the thought process of really him. I really.
There was times we disagree with David Bell, but 90% of the time we could understand why he was doing what he was doing. I don't even understand. Like, some of it just makes no sense whatsoever. The thing that's the most frustrating for me is I'm with you. I'll give him a pass for the West Coast. I would have called him up before, but like, I understand that. I can the St. Louis, not calling him up before the St. Louis series is incredibly frustrating. And the reason why it's incredibly frustrating is the only reason, Trace, that the Reds, it's pretty obvious if you follow the tea leaves here. The only reason the Reds waited to call up Sal Stewart was so they didn't have to DFA Santiago Espinal. That was the only reason why they waited. And I don't understand why you need Santiago Espinal on this roster. I understood it on opening day. You needed him to be a third base option because you had no good defensive third base, but you literally added the best defensive third baseman on planet Earth. He also was your backup first baseman. Well, you just called up another backup first baseman. Like, wouldn't even a guy like Blake Dunn make more sense? That has, I think, 98th percentile in sprint speed that could pinch run. What does Santiago Espinal's purpose on this team the rest of the season? That's what I don't understand. What is this? When is he going to play?
You know, I got to tell you, the value that the Reds have placed on Santiago Espinal in the clubhouse from the manager directly has obviously been, to us, completely overvalued. That's the only thing I can come up with. I'm not going to sit here and get into this tear Santiago Espinal down, and I know you don't want to do that either. That's not the goal of this. It's never the goal of the show is to sit here and just rip guys apart completely for no reason. If guys aren't playing well, sure, I'd like to at least point it out. I'd like to say, hey, it's frustrating that XYZ, isn't working out, so we need to do something else. Santiago Espinal's role on a good team is to provide some defensive help in areas that you think you're liable for back end of baseball games. And on top of that, perhaps you could say he could get a spot start, and against a left-handed pitcher, he's a serviceable player. That's what he is. That's who he is. And at this point, he's really not even been great against left-handed pitching. And you know what I would also say? Matt McClain's not been good either. I'm not here to be like I'm playing favorites one over the other. But Matt McClain, I think, put it this way, I think if you just took the blinders off, whether you have bias for one player or another, I think it's pretty obvious which player you would choose in a situation where you had to have one over the other, right? And you're not DFAing Matt McClain. He obviously has options, although I'm not talking about the whole situation of having to let guy go. I'm saying the options of playing guys. So, listen, man, it's not hard to figure out what guys they prefer over others. They don't like Will Benson under any circumstance, hardly at all. And they love Santiago Espinal. So, if you're looking for me to rationalize it, I can't do it. I just told you a minute ago.
And they're going to non-tender him at the end of the year. Like, there's no way the Reds are paying Santiago Espinal $4 million next year. And Santiago Espinal would be fine if this team didn't need to maximize every single roster spot because they like if this was the Los Angeles Dodgers and you had 9 hitters that you felt good about, right. Maybe the Dodgers aren't, but they actually have some weird spots. But I think you get my point. Right. Like maybe the Mets, the team that I think actually set their club record for home runs in a month this month. It'd be fine to have a guy that can play every position, that doesn't play much. But this team needs every single advantage they can get. They need guys that can pinch hit. Like you have to pinch hit for Trevino more so than probably most other catchers, just because you can't waste those opportunities because you don't have enough offense around. That's what I don't understand. And I'm not hating on Santiago Espinal. Like, I've defended the Santiago Espinal. I had no problem with him being on the roster really up until the last month of the season, really up until you added Ke'Bryan Hayes. I just think once you added Ke'Bryan Hayes, I don't see the value anymore.
Well, you're not going to like this, but I got a relative reason for it. I think Tito has more say in roster makeup and management than you think, or what we're led on to believe.
Very clear.
Well, I'm just being honest, and I think Tito is a do right by the players. We're not going to do this. Blah 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 blah. He's not that bad of a player. We're not going to DFA a guy that's meant a lot to our team in the whatever you're going to call it, in the middle of the playoff race just because we had some kid that we want to bring up here. I think that's part of it. Now, obviously, I don't have a direct answer, or I don't know for sure, but yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of beat up. I'm not trying to say nothing matters anymore. I'm not trying to be that guy, but just the decisions that were made over the weekend, the types of players that we have on this team, the spots we find those players being put in, it's just disgusting. It really is disgusting. We continue to bunt with first and second with nobody out. I don't know. I'm as close to throwing in the white towel as you humanly can get. And I'm with you, Nick. Like, what happens if you fall 5 games out, 6 games out after the Mets series? You don't sweep them. Are we going to get a chance to see some of these guys that we kind of would like to maybe start to understand whether you want to use them or not use them, or move them or not move them? I mean, I don't know. On this baseball team, I'm not totally sure. I mean, I guess do we go down this path? I don't know. I don't really want to go down the beaten path here, Nick. I want to try to stay on track, but it's just like, what do you do with guys like, CES or Will Benson or whoever else you want to say didn't get really that many opportunities this year in the big league uniform that, to be quite frank, in 2023, if we said that this was going to be a team that we were going to be excited about in 2025, they were a big part of it. And now they're not a part of it at all. And we're filling the roles with guys that aren't going to be here again. And I don't mean to say be overly rude, but we have a lot of retread type players, guys that are just, they've been around the league. They're going to be around the league. They're going to bounce from one organization to the next until they find themselves not in the league because they're just average or slightly below average players.
You want to talk a little bit about Sal Stewart?
Yeah, why not? He obviously is. He's obviously gonna be. I don't want to say the only reason to tune in on a nightly basis from here moving forward, but he's going to be a large part of it.
Well, as long as it's in the lineup, fingers crossed. I'm not counting any chickens on that until I see Stewart DH, first base, second base, third base, wherever. I'm not going to believe that he's going to play every day. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope that maybe that was the one thing that this front office twisted Tito's arm and said, "Hey, we really need this to happen." This would be one of your ones you say, "Hey, we're vetoing you on this." But Sal Stewart, I mean, one of the most impressive minor league seasons we've ever seen in the Reds organization. That's not hyperbole. The most impressive thing was last year. This time last year, Sal Stewart was on the IL. He got hurt. He had a wrist injury. Last game was July 14th, 2024. When the Dragons made their run to the playoffs, he wasn't there. So he didn't play after July 14th, 2024, and he was still in high A. So he starts the year, well, obviously spring training, he was incredible at a 135 WRC plus in spring training. Goes to Double-A, has a 146 WRC plus. Then he goes to Triple-A and is even better, 163 WRC plus. The most impressive thing, he had 10 home runs in 38 games at Double-A. In 2023 and 2024, he had 20 home runs in 197 games. So he's like completely flipped the power. And stats like I like to use, expected weighted on base average says that Sal should actually be better than what his numbers were at AAA. They have him weighted on base average, which is a true outcome. They have it 428. Expected is 444, which is like, that's ridiculous. Usually when you see guys over 400, there's usually something fluky. Usually they're lower than that. Like having a 400 at that is incredibly difficult. So he's had an incredible year. And this is one thing you love. And we could talk about him not getting called up. The one thing you do love is that this guy kicked down the door. And that's just great because, like, you don't want to call up your prospects out of necessity, which the Reds have done a lot over the last few years. This guy kicked down the door as far as you can kick down as possible. And I'm excited to see him. I don't want to put too high of expectations on any player just because, like I've said, the Reds had an incredible run where Ellie, McLean, CES, and Marte all came up and hit the ground running. That's not normal. Some of the best prospects we've ever seen, guys like Jordan Walker, we just saw this weekend, did not hit the ground running. So you never know till it get there. But every sign, everything that he's done up to this point is as true as it can be. And he's absolutely 1,000% deserving of this opportunity.
Yeah, you said it well. I mean, there's other guys that have come up here of recent. I'd argue that Matt McLean, Ellie, and CES kind of all did that. I mean, they all basically forced their hand to get an opportunity at the big league level. And now the case is what everybody else is going to say from a pessimistic side is, well, we've had other guys that have been good in Triple-A, and they've come up here and not played well. And there has been obviously a handful of guys that have done that of late, right? And I'm not going to sit here and act like that Sal Stewart is the next coming of Barry Bonds or nothing along those lines. And in fact, my expectations for Sal Stewart aren't extremely high. Now, someone's going to say, they're going to be like, well, you can't play both sides of the aisle on this. You're a hypocrite. One side, you say you had to bring him up for the St. Louis series, and next thing you know, now you're saying, well, he might not be that big of a deal. Don't, temper your expectations. Let me be very clear. The reason that I wanted him to come up so badly is because of the lack of production that we currently have at the big league level. It's not because I think, without a shadow of doubt, that he's going to be he's going to be one of the best hitters in this lineup immediately. But he might be. And that's worth the risk. Because when you don't have a whole lot to lose, sometimes it seems to be wise to take the chance. This isn't like we're mortgaging kind of any opportunity or any situation that we couldn't perhaps look back on and regret. I mean, what are we going to regret by bringing Sal Stewart up? I don't see a whole lot. If that means Austin Hayes doesn't get to play a whole lot anymore, so be it by me, man. I don't give a damn. I really don't. If it means that Spencer Steer doesn't play first base every single day, that's fine by me as well. If it means they got to split time between DH and first base, cool. I don't care. If he plays second base and Matt McLean gets some days off, I'm fine by that too. I don't want to say I don't care at all. I just don't care how he is utilized at the big league level as long as he gets a fair chance. That's my main thing at this point. And I know everybody's going to sit here and say that I play favorites and all that, and maybe perhaps I do like everyone else. Because if you're going to sit here and tell me that Santiago Espinal deserves the opportunities he's been given this year, because there's some people that feel that way, and that's fine. That's your opinion. You can feel that way. But I feel like Will Benson's been screwed. And I understand people think that this is a Will Benson show and everyone, it's a Will Benson that. Okay, I'm just sitting here saying, if I'm looking at this holistically and what this team's been capable of doing from time to time, I'm rather going with the guys that I think actually have what I would call above big league talent. They might not be above big league players, but they have above big league talent. In my opinion, with Sal Stewart, Nick, he has above big league talent in regards to an average player. He might not even be an average player. I don't know. But I do know that his ceiling is significantly higher than a lot of the guys that we have trotted out there on a nightly basis. So we'll see with Sal Stewart on what comes of it. But yeah, I guess you can say that I'm a hypocrite in regards to the fact that I do wish he was up here 2 weeks ago. But I'm not going to sit here and act like if he doesn't get a hit in his first week in the big leagues that he's going to be a bust. Or I'm not going to sit here and act like he should carry this offense as soon as he gets up here and put a cape on. No. If he does it, will I be a little smirky? Will I probably have some humorous things to say? Will I probably say, who would have seen this coming? I don't know. The guy's got a 295 WRC plus in Louisville. It's a little bit of a joke. I think it was 213, but you get the point. 213, by the way, for those that are keeping math, you could probably multiply Espinal and McLean's WRC plus at 1 point this season by itself, and you wouldn't get to that number. So what we do with Santiago Espinal and Matt McLean and Spencer Steer and Hayes with Hays to be clear for those that are always wondering, and then The rest of, I guess, whoever we decide to throw at DH like Andujar, I'm going to say this nicely. I really don't care. As long as Sal Stewart gets a significant amount of at-bats in the next 30 days, or 27 days, I should say.
Can I say this? I think there's 3 players that should play every day, and the rest of them, I don't. If any of them get a day off on a certain day, I'm not really going to be too upset. Ellie De La Cruz, sue me. Noel V. Marte, and Cabrian Hayes. Like, those are the 3 guys that I think should be penciled in every day. Who else plays? I mean, dive full blown into every matchup and every little. Hey, this guy. Figure out whoever hits this guy's pitching repertoire the best. Like, the rest of them, I don't really care. Those 3 guys are the only 3 that I think have to play every day, and Ellie can get a day off. Don't mix my words on this. He should get a day off, and I think Craig laid that out very well over the weekend. We don't need to rehash that. But those are the only 3 that I think have to be penciled in the lineup. And I guess Trevino as well, but I think that kind of goes without saying.
Yeah, and Trevino's out of necessity. To be fair, I mean, I don't think it's not because Trevino's so impactful for this team that you couldn't perhaps see him without a day off. I would even say this about Banfield. Like, I mean, he's serviceable, certainly behind the plate. I could trust him behind the plate. And you know what? It's okay to have a couple guys in a lineup, maybe 1 or 2 guys in a lineup that can't hit. Like, that's okay. You just can't have like 6 average hitters, 1 slightly below average hitter, and then 2 terrible hitters. It just doesn't work. So, I don't know.
Yeah, shout out to Will Banfield. He has not felt like a liability behind the plate at all. Which, when you call up a guy that's never played in the big leagues before at catcher, no matter what their profile looks like, you never know. There's been, I remember 2022, the Reds ran out catcher after catcher after catcher, and I remember saying, well, this guy's really good defensively, and it was awful. It was a disaster. So shout out to him. If you were expecting Will Banfield to come up and hit, you were sadly mistaken. Right. But he's done a nice job behind the plate. Credit to him. And
I would say it stinks in hindsight because that opportunity with the whole Trevino pinch run situation happened so early in Banfield's kind of major league career.
Yeah.
That clearly, I think if Tito could do it over again, he would 100% would trust Banfield behind the plate. I mean, Banfield, I'm not trying to overhype this guy. He looks just as good as Trevino behind the plate, if not better. I mean, we'll see. It is what it is. I'm ready. I'm trying to move on, but it's hard to move on, man. We have these games, for those that are wondering, they all matter. And the truth is they had so many winnable opportunities, and they've just completely botched it so many times that now you're starting to think to yourself, well, if we had 2 of those back, Nick, we'd be like a game out. I mean, it's just insane. The end of this season is going to be heartbreaking about how many times we screwed the pooch. And we're going to be like, well, if we would have just figured out half of those, we'd be in the playoffs. But that's not how it works. So, all right. Anything else on Sal Stewart?
That's the one thing that is most frustrating, but in some ways does give me like kind of hope that like not all hope is lost for the future. Like, it doesn't make me feel good inside, but if I'm trying to like rationally think about this team, I'm like, they're clearly not that far away.
No, if they get the same starting pitching, which we'll get into the offseason about whether or not you can trust that. That's the real problem here. I mean, it's almost like they, I don't know. They've been getting they've been given a golden egg, man, and they just decided that they're gonna let the golden egg go to rot.
I just saw this earlier. I bring it up. Reds number 1 in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break. Overall pitching, starting pitching and bullpen, and wins above replacement. Number 1.
Yeah, so they've quite literally had the best pitching that you could have in the entire league since the All-Star break, and I mean they've not even gotten hot. Like, they've not even had like a crazy good run. It's been tough.
No better time than the present.
Yeah, why not now? Why not us? All right, folks, as always, you can text and or call 988 day or night 24/7 anonymous hotline if you're in a crisis. Please remember that life is better with you in it. You can also visit mantherapy.org. That's mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay to not be okay. We have a plethora amount of super chats. Before we get to those, we also want to remind you, I would try to be funny here, but I'm going to maybe not be overly ridiculous about this because I don't want people to think that I've completely given up. I still have an ounce of hope left. And by an ounce, I mean quite literally 1 ounce. But it could also be the funeral of Chatterbox Reds. It will be at Smoke Justice, Tuesday, September 2nd, 4:30 to 6:30. We'll be doing a pregame show live. Myself, Craig Sandlin will be there. Nick will probably obviously chime in as well in regards to coming in on the over the telephone / internet, whatever you would like to call it. Hope to see a good amount of you there. We had a good crowd last time. Once again, these relationships we have, these sponsorships, they're very, very important for us, obviously, to continue to do a good job and invest more and more resources into this show. So if you can get there, we would very much appreciate it. 4:30 to 6:30, 302 Court Street in Covington, Kentucky. That is Smoke Justice. Good food. They got plenty of bourbon, whatever bourbon you'd like. So you might need some of that, if we're being completely honest. It might be a good place to go. So, I don't know. We'll see how Monday goes. But Tuesday at Smoke Justice, the Blue Jays, David Bell's Blue Jays are headed to town. Not to get ahead of ourselves